30 seconds and counting.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. After the draft has wrapped up, I think it's pretty clear that, in my opinion, the Houston Rockets are the winners of this NBA draft out of all of these teams. And there's a lot of reasons why, especially going through these 4 picks, not just the players themselves, but also how we acquired these players, especially if you look at the 16th pick with Sengun. We'll go into that later. But just starting off at the top, the second pick, Jalen Green. I think this one is probably the most self-explanatory of all of them as to why this is a good pick. He was the best player available. It's pretty simple. It's about as simple as that. The best player that was available. He is without a doubt the best scorer in the draft, averaged almost 20 points a game against grown men who are NBA caliber players, not NBA players, but players who are capable of playing in the NBA, players who have the ability, some of them are on 2-way contracts in the NBA. So these guys are NBA level talents that Jalen Green is going up against, and he averaged almost 20 points a game against them. He has super high upside, especially if he develops his defense, with that. He has shown so much, he's talked so much about him developing his defense that there has to be some level of effort behind it. Jalen Green, of course, one of the most applauded things about him by scouts going into the draft was his work ethic. And given his commitment that he's given to Rockets fans, to the media, and all that he said about him wanting to, be all defensive team at some point in his career. And that, I think, kind of shows that he's going to work on his defense. And if he can address that defensive issue and become a good defender, doesn't have to be all defensive, but if he can even be an above average defender, his upside is through the roof. I think he has the ability, if he can improve as a defender, to be a top 15, top 10 NBA player, because he's already going into the league as one of the best scorers. And his only real issue is his defense. And if he can, address that, become a good defender, there's really nothing stopping him from being a superstar player. And so, again, Jalen Green also, with that scoring, addresses one of the Rockets' biggest needs. We were among the lowest in offensive rating last season. We didn't really have a lot of motion, a lot of smoothness in the offense, because there wasn't a lot of efficiency, a lot of good shooting, and a lot of also just efficient scoring. And Jalen Green brings all of that. He's a good shooter, good scorer, efficient scorer to an extent. He's not the most efficient, but he is pretty efficient, especially for someone who is around 18, 19 years old. And so, again, Jalen Green, I think it's pretty self-explanatory as to why this is a good pick. But it's also, again, a lot of people feel like Mobley should have been the pick or whatever. But I think regardless of what you think, Jalen Green, I think, without a doubt, is an amazing pick, and I'm absolutely loving this pick so far.
Right, and on top of all that you have said about his talent, we cannot forget like what he brings in the locker room to his teammates. He really fits this underdog culture that the Rockets have, filled with like undrafted players who their teams just, like gave up on, like Kevin Porter Jr. just gave up on him, sent him to Houston thinking, whatever, we don't need him. Players like who went undrafted, players who just, it's all underdogs here in Houston. And he thought he was the number 1 player in the draft. And honestly, if he did go to Detroit number 1, it's not even that big of a shock, because he's just an amazing scorer, an amazing player with elite talent and amazing physical gifts. He fits that. He's going to bring that mentality. His work ethic is one of the best in the draft, and with a player who's already so good as him having that grind, that need to like better himself, get better at the game, not only for himself but for his teammates, because of the friendships that he has and the chemistry he has with players like Kevin Porter Jr., like KJ Martin, like Josh Christopher, who we will be talking about later in this video. It's everything you can ask for. It's not just the player, but it's also, the chemistry that's being built in the organization. So yeah, and the next pick that we can talk about is Alperen Sengun, the big man out of Turkey. Now, in order to acquire this pick, the Houston Rockets had to do a trade with the Oklahoma City Thunder for pick number 16. They gave up the Washington pick from 2023, which was acquired from the John Wall trade, and the Detroit pick which was super, super heavily protected. Both of these picks are pretty much not going to convey for many years to come. So it's essentially like we're giving up nothing. And we were able to get the 16th pick and get Sengun. Then it's an amazing like player. It's amazing gift. We were able to give up basically nothing for him, and he's a big man, so he addresses that need that the Rockets really need, and yeah, he's definitely just like the second best player, second best center in this draft.
Yeah, and Sengun, I think behind only Mobley, is the second best player in the draft, and he has a very, very good upside as well. He probably doesn't have the superstar talent or something like that, but he still does have talent enough to be an all star player. I think if he reaches that full potential, he brings pretty much everything on offense, especially when you consider this guy's a big man, and he's a more traditional big man too. And so while he's not the best shooter, he is still a very, very good scorer. He has pretty much every post move that you could ask for. I think it's going to be almost impossible to guard him in the post, especially once he develops, once he hits his stride, hits his peak. I think it's going to be pretty much impossible to stop him in the post. He's also a very, very good playmaker out of the post, which makes it even more lethal because you can't just double team him in the post or something like that because he will find the open man. And if you can put the shooters around him, I think it's going to be very, very lethal. And that playmaking combined with his elite post scoring is an elite package, especially when you consider the trade package that was given up to trade up and get Sengun. I think it's an absolute win. His off ball movement, as far as rolling to the basket, all of that, still very, very good as well. And so it's not a situation where he's just standing still in the paint or standing right outside it or in the dunker spot when he doesn't have the ball in his hand. He does move pretty well without the ball. And so Sengun, I think, especially when you consider the package that we gave up, is a very, very, very good talent for the package that we gave up, and also just what he brings to the table with all of his offensive potential, his playmaking, his scoring, and also his off-ball movement. Very, very good. Now, looking at the later first-round picks, these are the picks that we own. Starting off with the 23rd pick is Usman Garuba. This is, I think, one of the more expected picks. A lot of people mocked Usman Garuba going to us, and but that doesn't really take away anything from the fact that this is still a very, very good pick. Garuba is probably the second best defender in this draft behind maybe Mobley, maybe even better defender than Evan Mobley, especially if you consider the competition level compared to what Mobley was playing against versus what Garuba was playing against. You can definitely make the argument that Usman Garuba is the best defender in the draft. He has the ability to guard 1 through 5. And I think, especially for his height, he's not a 7 footer. He's not anything like that. Usman Garuba, he's a power forward. He's a wing. And for that size, he is definitely a very, very good shot blocker. Again, 6'8", but he's still, he's going to chase down block. He's going to pin you to the glass. He's going to do all of that. For someone who's 6'8", he has the hops to get up and contest pretty much anyone's shot. And I think Garuba, his defense alone makes this just an insane pick, especially when you consider when we took him in the late first round. Garuba's potential on the defensive side of the ball, absolutely insane. And it's crazy that he fell all the way to 23.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that defense. Garuba is the type of player that coming into this like into the Rockets, you can honestly just put him on your opponent's best player at times. He can guard easily the 2 to 4, and in some cases the 1 and the 5. If it's like less agile point guard or like an undersized big, definitely can like guard up, hold his own. He honestly wasn't really like expected to fall to 23. A lot of mocks did have him going from like 15 to 19 ish, but so the Rockets are actually really lucky that he was able to fall at 23. And about Garuba, he was playing with Spain. He was playing in Europe, so he already is a pro when it comes to the game of basketball. He knows how offenses work. He knows how to, and because that he's able to read them really well. Defenses, I feel like he's going to be a really, really great help defender. He's able to come in from the weak side, get some blocks, guard your man, help up with whatever there is. Pick and roll defenses is something that he's been pretty much amazing at. Shot blocking, he's just a player that he's going to be your Swiss Army knife. And alongside a guy like Jason Tate, the two of them will clamp up your favorite player. I'm saying that like I'm not even being biased. It's actually scary how good defensively this guy is. And now for our final pick of the first round, we have Josh Christopher. Now, a lot of people were a little surprised by this pick, but it's not to take away from the fact that Josh Christopher isn't is a bad pick, but it's just like some people just didn't have it mocked because we already took Jalen Green. But you can also just say because he is a chemistry move, and due to his prior relationship with future players, he is good friends with Kenyon Martin Jr., good friends with Kevin Porter Jr., and best friends with Jalen Green. The two of them did play in AAU teams growing up, and then with Kenyon Martin Jr., the two of them played in high school together, and then Kevin Porter Jr., being good friends with both of them, is a mutual friend, and they know each other all. So it's really a chemistry move. With him in the locker room, when the other people are having bad games, he's able to hype them up, and honestly, the four of them just they really just you can tell that it's going to be good whenever there's not going to be too many issues, there's not going to be too many egos going around. All of them look like they would know their role, know exactly what they have to do on both sides of the ball. They're not going to compete with each other. Instead, they're going to help each other. They're going to raise each other's floors and their ceilings. It's just it's a good move chemistry wise.
Yeah, and I think already on the court, what these guys bring makes it the most probably one of the most fun teams in the league to watch next season. But even off the court, all of these guys being already friends, it's not even like they're on an NBA team. It's almost like they're like high school kids on an AAU team that have been friends for like 5 years. That's pretty much what it's like. It's like a college team basically, with the chemistry level on this team. Pretty much everyone that's a part of this core knows each other, is friends with each other. Even the international guys, Sengun and Garuba, played against each other, and those guys have a relationship that way. And so the chemistry on this team is absolutely insane. And Christopher kind of rounds it out. He's that glue guy. Every team needs a glue guy to be successful. And you can kind of envision Christopher being that guy, both on the court with his energy and also off the court, his relationships with all of these players. Again, one of my favorite Christopher moments is him sort of shouting out Garuba and Sengun on the night he was drafted on Instagram, and that's cool to see, especially when you consider that he doesn't know them at all, and so the fact they shouted them out as his teammates, as his friends in the future is really nice to see. He's going to be a great chemistry piece for us. But even looking at his on-court play, it's still very, very interesting and intriguing. He has, I think, the highest potential out of all of the guards that were available at that position. The other guys, you're looking at Cam Thomas, who he isn't the best defender. He's probably not going to reach as good of a defensive level that Christopher is at. Same thing if you're looking at a guy like Jaden Springer, and with Bones Highland. Again, it's kind of the same situation where you don't know if he's going to develop a 3-point shot as good enough to surpass him over Christopher and his potential. Christopher's potential is through the roof. There's no doubt about it. If he can, if we can maybe send him to the G League for a little while, get him to develop the right way, I think there is a very, very high ceiling for Josh Christopher that he can reach if we can develop him the right way. One of the things that he brings that pretty much none of the other guards that were available at that place, unless you're looking at like an Ayo Dosunmu, but he's a reach at 24, is his defense. He is probably one of the best on-ball defenders among guards in this year's draft class, and that is already really, really scary to see because I think Christopher is the good contrast or the kind of counter to what we have with Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green because those guys aren't the best defenders. And so you can envision a lineup when one of Kevin Porter Jr. or Jalen Green are on the bench. You can run Josh Christopher next to them as that sort of counter on the defensive side of the ball so that both of those guys aren't getting burned on the defensive end. Again, with Jalen Green, he's going to develop. He's not going to be bad on the defensive side, but especially when you're running alongside Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green, especially in the rookie year, neither of these guys are going to be very good defenders. And so putting Christopher next to them is a beautiful fit. And then you can also see maybe like in certain spurts of time, maybe a 3 guard lineup with Kevin Porter Jr., Christopher, and Jalen Green at the small forward position. That's something that you can see at times, maybe in stretches where you want to, generate some extra offense, something like that. You could run something like a 3 guard lineup of Christopher, Jalen Green, and Kevin Porter Jr. And that's also an intriguing lineup, especially because of Christopher's defense, which is a kind of contrast to the extreme offense of Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. Now, his transition offense is also something that I think is very, very notable. There are so many clips out there of him sort of being a one-man fast break of sorts. He's weaving through the defense in transition. If he gets downhill, you're pretty much not stopping. There's pretty much no way you're going to stop Josh Christopher when he's going downhill in transition. And that is a very, very good dynamic to have. This team, I think anyone can see this team being in like the top 10 in pace in the NBA. You've got three athletic, explosive guards in Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, and now Josh Christopher. Not to mention, you also still have John Wall on the roster, who he is, even after the Achilles injury, one of the fastest players in the NBA. And so there is a very, very plausible world where the Rockets next season are top 10 in the NBA in pace. And that's always very, very intriguing to see. It's always more fun when a team is playing quickly, playing with energy, with explosiveness. It's always very, very fun to see. And that is kind of the theme of this upcoming team and the season. It's going to be fun. There probably aren't going to be a lot of games won. You're probably looking at like a 30 or 35 win season, but it's going to be an extremely fun team to watch. And that is really all you can ask for in like the first or second year of a rebuild, is that the team is fun to watch and that I know you have a lot of promising players with a lot of upside. And that's what we're in right now. And that'll wrap it up. Again, with this draft, I think it pretty much wraps up all but, like maybe like one final hole of the rebuild, which might be like adding a shooter or two. And this draft, the fact that we added 4 players has been absolutely critical. Raphael Stone made it very clear that he wants this rebuild to be a quick one. And I think we saw that in the way that he expressed himself in this year's draft, not only taking with all 3 of the picks that he had this year, which is not something that we thought would happen. We thought he would package the late first round picks to maybe trade up into the lottery or something like that. But he drafted both of the late first round picks and also traded for another pick in the first round, the 16th pick. Clearly, he's banking on all of these guys reaching their potential and speeding up the rebuild and contending as soon as possible. And that's really, really nice to see. Pretty much all the holes in this roster are filled. Besides adding some shooters and maybe some interior defense, there's pretty much no other holes in this roster. And that'll wrap up this video. Again, let us know your thoughts in the comment section on the Rockets' young core right now, and also the Rockets draft class. I think it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that we are the winners of this draft, but there is a lot of chatter going around on social media that the Rockets didn't win this draft or something like that, which I think is wrong. But let us know in the comment section your reasoning. Do you think we won this draft? And if so, why? If you don't think we won this draft, why not? Let us know and we'll talk about it there. As always, thanks for watching. And I am Joel, and I was joined today here by DJ. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.